Yeah, so it's almost like each point of interaction or each touch point between our senses and the world is like a pixel on this screen of our what do we call our, is it our worldview? That would be our collection of all of our models kind of in one sense of
Yeah,
self is your,
I think I think, but everybody's worldview is different,
of
right?
course, yeah,
There isn't one person that I agree with on everything, nor do they agree with me on
right,
every, everything. But there's people I'm closer to, and our worldviews overlap on most things.
yeah,
Uh, there isn't, and by the way, that's actually the positive in the world, because we're all learning,
yes,
and our environment is changing all the time as well, and we're updating our models from that environment change.
yes. And that's what, so if you scaled, if we zoom out on the scale of this notion, that's what the market's doing as well, right? Each individual market actor is one of these perspectives or nodes or model makers, I guess. And they're, or perhaps it's a synapse. Every transaction is a synapse, something like that. And every exchange is putting information into the market, right? Every buy and sell decision is feeding, it's informing the market to produce, what to produce, how much to produce, and um, also telling people the cost of consumption, right, through the price signal. So it's the same thing. It's like your brain has this network architecture that your body has, even beyond just your brain. You have other senses that are, you have
Yeah.
proprioception and things that don't necessarily relate directly to the brain. They do. And then that scales out into the marketplace as well.
So let's take that thread, and let's say I commented on a post that you put the other day about kind of this at that level, and what I said is all we are is energy, storage, and compute.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think what a cell is, what a plant is, what we are, what our brains are: energy, storage, and compute.
Yeah.
And why that's actually a really important concept is we link together because we have limited storage. Even though the brain is
Mm-hmm.
incredibly complex, can do amazing things, we have limited storage capacity. We have, and as out of that limited storage capacity, because some of these neurons firing and synapses firing are incredibly complex, they create super highways of information, but we can't, and you can recall certain things you're practicing all the time or doing all the time really easily, but
Mm-hmm.
you can't hold that information across everything. So you
Right.
have to simplify your kind of your models on that. It's actually why we narrow our intelligence, not just say we narrow our field domain of field, so we're really good at something,
Mm-hmm. Specialization.
expense of something else, and how economies grew as a result of that. And so but for that to happen, for economies to grow as a result of that specialization or the division of labor, um, what we do is we link together all of our minds, and by linking together our minds, we create a supercomputer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And now just think that through. So, and the supercomputer, the more compute, more storage, the more performance.
Mm-hmm.
And why, if you look through the long arrow of time, and you say, actually, Jeffrey West wrote a book called Scale, where he investigated
Oh,
the
yes.
biggest, yeah, the biggest cities, and then the smaller cities, and the works. And I found that really interesting. But I think what is actually happening is, to hold that supercomputer together requires trust, and
Mm-hmm.
money is that trust that holds a supercomputer together.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that being a constant, if you had a bigger city with higher trust, you would have more supercompute, you would have more idea generation, and you'd have a better economy and better standard of living.
Mm-hmm.
And if you and that followed kind of a power law on smaller cities, because you have smaller compute. And then where it broke is where you had big cities but no trust, or regions with no trust, and which makes sense, because you would break the supercomputer. You would break
Mm-hmm.
the anchor holding that kind of those brains together. And so I think that's typically what we see as the evolution of our species: energy, storage and compute, and us searching for ever higher kind of areas for storage and compute, energy storage and compute. And why books through the printing press was a staggering advance is because now we could store more information. And because of storage of information, we could apply more compute, more minds to that information. And that same thing is happening in computers today.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah, again, a lot really good stuff there. I want to try and whatever, just weave some threads here with you and we'll see where it goes. So this idea of language, by the way, because this whole supercomputer we're describing, the marketplace or the collective mind, whatever you want to call it, it's facilitated by language. It's also facilitated by money, but let's just focus on language for a minute. These are kind of the two, I think, most important signaling mechanisms or technologies. Another way to think about it, language is a technology in the same way that money is. They have some different characteristics, but very similar.
Actually, let's say this: it's information, right?
Yeah, informational tool, maybe.
Yeah, it's information, and every piece of language accrues information. You'll hear that language different than I will through my own mental filter.
That's exactly where I'm going with this. Is the value of language is the consensus of meaning on words, and most disagreements occur when two people are, this is talking past each other. Typically, you don't have the same model of meaning for the word, so you're in disagreement because you understand the word one way, I understand the word another way.
Yeah.
But the value of language is to establish consensus on those meanings so that you don't have those miscommunications.
Yeah, and you'll always have those miscommunications because Amazon, if I say Amazon in Brazil versus Amazon in America, it means two different things. And so there's a conflict there because language doesn't, it's information, but it could be perfect information. And I wrote about that a little bit in my book. And our model, my own model of what I perceive you to say Amazon to mean, or any word to mean, or any, it's not what you're saying. It's my perception of what you're saying through my model that informs that. Actually, by the way, if you loop that all the way back to trust, why trust is so important in connecting supercomputer, because if I'm looking through my model of mistrust and I'm expecting then I can't see what you actually mean.
Right.
It breaks the software.
You're distorting the receipt of the message through your own negative expectation.
My own model.
Yeah.
I think we've even talked about this. So a victim showing up in the world, right? And a victim, what they actually are really looking for is love and connection.
Right.
But they're distorting how to get love and connection. Love is all around them all the time. But they're distorting how to get it through trying to get love and connection. What they effectively do is push away the thing they want most,
right,
by trying to get it. But that view, well, it's sad to see. There's somebody right beside them. There's a totally different person that sees a totally different world, and their world is very different.
Yeah, right.
And that person's model of the world informing everything they see, but it's true for them, and it'll reinforce. And in trying to tell that person their model is broken, right, and the world doesn't look like that, it's hard to have it's hard to break down that part of the model.